Hey guys, this is my final presentation for Ed 212, Section 2, Human Relations. I'm Hayden Stone. I'm a music education major with a preference in secondary ed. My index, I'm starting off with Human Relations by Diaz, then my case studies, both of my articles, and my MLK Junior Strength to Love, and then finally, Plan for Continuation in Human Relations and Diversity in the Classroom. So for human relations by Diaz, the biggest points that I took out of it were conflict can actually be beneficial and it can make a group more productive. And I'm going to be using this inside my classes for like sectionals when we're on time crunches. So that was very impactful for me. Types of leadership and commitment are essential knowledge in a workplace. Leadership is in an ensemble and each person has a different aspect. Of course, if the same people, like the same kind of leadership is in there, obviously the group's not going to work as well as it would if it had a nice balance between all the different kinds of leadership. So that was my biggest takeaway for that. For the case studies, I started off with 4 and 8. So case study 4 had Miss Williams, and she taught her students to do research online, and she's like, hey, this is a good time for me to do research on women in history, on like how they're often over times overlooked just because of their gender. And then one of the students started acting up and saying I didn't want to do a presentation on women. And so that's that one. On case study 8, it was Miss Lotzer. They had maps and photos donated by the city that had 1930s views of African Americans, which are very different than our views now. A parent complained saying that they were offensive, and the teacher took it to the principal, and they agreed that they would take them down till further notice. For that one in specific, I felt as though it was a good idea to take them down because unless the teacher had said that it was a part of her curriculum, I don't think it was necessary to keep them up. And usually, it's not a great idea to um, have everything that parents say happen because obviously you can't satisfy every parent in a school district. But at the same time, if it didn't apply to her curriculum at all and she wasn't using it to teach, hey, this is what views used to look like of African Americans, and this is what they are now, but she didn't. So that's kind of why I said that was okay. Case study 12, 4 best friends address themselves using the N word and the term for their Caucasian friend, Wigga. They use this in the classroom, and even though it's friendly, Miss Persons believes that it could lead to others using inappropriate language in the class. So for this one, especially since it's in the school rules, I assume that it was in the school rules to not use language like this. Um, it's just inappropriate, and even though it was said friendly, it shouldn't be used in the school setting because, like Miss Person said, it could lead to others using that language in class, which could go very wrong very fast. For case study 16, Miss Soltow knew that poverty and gang violence was common where many of her students lived. She made a writing assignment to free write when someone they loved had unknowingly hurt them. One of the students, he stated an example of when his brother got shot twice using gang violence, and then he cried, and then a bunch of other people told similar stories, and then they did a free write. So she could have easily followed up with her students saying, hey, I'm a mandatory reporter, but these are the things that I could maybe help you with and things that could benefit you. I also really liked this idea because I feel like some teachers acknowledge students' emotions, and usually when you're able to do a free writing style thing like this inside of a class, it can just relax you, and having that idea being able to get off your mind is just extraordinarily therapeutic, especially for kids so young where their mind is in such a fragile state. Because I know a lot of us have been there. But so that was case study 16. For the articles 1 and 2, feminism and culture, and I included a picture of somebody. He said, I need feminism because I want to live in a world where it's safe to be me. And then he said, woo, and yeah, I thought that was funny. But it said, the first article was Islam, feminism, and Islamic feminism between inadequacy and inevitability. So feminism is inherently disliked by Islam. Partially, she gave 3 reasons that scholars thought of. The first one is that the roots are from Europe, and a lot of the cultures, a lot of the people down there didn't necessarily agree with that from previous experiences in history. Another idea is that it's too westernized to function in countries where Islam dominates because feminism it's mainly used in countries like Australia, South Africa, Europe, and North America, which tend to be high income westernized societies, whereas most of the countries that aren't that are Islamic are usually Middle Eastern companies like Iran, Pakistan, um, countries like that, where necessarily the ideas and support systems that follow feminism wouldn't necessarily work in a country like Pakistan or Iran. So then the third reason this one was highly likely is that the Quran shows little to no women in power and men are higher up than women. So almost always in the religious texts, according to CDAT, I've never personally read them, but she said that women aren't often treated equally as men inside the religious text, partially because they were written thousands of years ago. And so that's a huge reason. So it's built into their culture and daily practices. And so that second-hand idea that men are better than women is frequently said, even if they don't necessarily mean that. Feminism is inevitable and currently happening. That's kind of what CDAT's main idea was, is that even though they don't like the term, it's what's actually happening and that it's inevitable. So the other one is feminist does not equal feminine. Feminist women are visually masculinized, masculinized, there we go. Whereas feminist men are feminized. So feminist men are seen as feminine and more feminist males are gay and have more feminine attributes. That was one of the main reasons that Gunderson pointed out, and he said that since more often than not, gay men usually have more attributes than, well, feminine attributes than heterosexual men, that this could be a reason since more feminist men are gay than heterosexual. And then so for feminist women are seen as more masculine. Feminist women tend to have more masculine facial features than non-feminist women. This was from a study in a northern European country, I believe it was the Netherlands. But anyways, they studied this saying that this could be a potential reason, but Gunderson's main idea was that feminists should be seen as themselves and not masculinized or feminized, just because they were a part of the social group. So then I had a little quote before I entered the MLK thing. It was my favorite quote from the book, but it said, "Philanthropy is commendable, but it must not cause the philanthropist to overlook the circumstances of economic injustice that make philanthropy necessary." That was on page 25, and then there's a picture. MLK Jr.'s Strength to Love, and these were the main ideas that were presented in chapter 13, which was the answer to a perplexing question, which is man and God are intertwined. Man can't do everything on his own, and they found that out during the Renaissance, that man can't cast out evil by himself, as well as God can't do it all on his own. They found this out during the Reformation, seeing that man isn't just inherently evil and there are good attributes to man. And they said to be rid of evil, man must be open to God's will. And that's how evil is cleansed. That's what Martin Luther King Jr. said. Then prayer only goes so far. Action must be taken in order to create change. He specifically stated, obviously, the overhanging fruit in this one, that it was the civil rights movement and that you can't just sit there and pray, because you can do that, but at the same time, if God and man are both intertwined to create the best results, then if you're praying, you're only using God and you're expecting him to be a quote-unquote cosmic bellhop. And I thought that was really good. But he said that action must be taken in order to create that change, preferably a peaceful action. So plans for continuation in human relations for my own personal life. Attending conventions for teachers. A lot of these have great sources that you can utilize so that you can learn more about human relations and how to deal with troublesome students, angered parents, to stay relaxed, things like that I look forward to learning from. As well as listening more frequently just to your students. And I had a little thing over here that says all the different parts of active listening, and I thought this was a great picture and a great drawing. So plans for diversity in the classroom. I'm lucky that I'm a music teacher because I'm able to use a lot of aspects that other teachers can't use and be able to connect to my students in a different way. So I want to do songs about diverse topics. I've done this a lot in previous choirs, doing songs that are from other countries as well as other cultures. And then just figuring out what the music means to each individual student, like after telling them the story about how this song, like what it is and what it means and like why it was written, and then seeing how they can apply that to their own life to give themselves the most connection to a song. But in theory, it also helps teach the students more about their own emotions, as well as more about the history of the song. Emotional topics about injustice. This one was something I focused on a lot in high school with a lot of my choirs, but just finding injustice like sexism, racism, poverty, and just a lot of songs about that. There's a good amount of them, and they can be extraordinarily powerful, relate to many students in the classroom, and every student can learn from these songs, even if they've not personally experienced one of these things. So then these are my works cited, and then these were all the pictures that I took from. And then thank you. Have a beautiful night's sleep, and this pug is adorable. Okay, that's my presentation.